Hey guys, welcome to Keeping It 99 podcast. Here from Virginia, actually, with Father Anthony Messeh. We appreciate you coming on, and it's an honor to have you.
Me.
Thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to be a part of this podcast. So today, something I'd like to talk about is an issue that's like plaguing a lot of people in general, not just in the Coptic Church and churches in general, especially among the youth. It's something that I struggle with in my own life. It's this double-minded life, this double-sided life, this two-face, and just like I feel like for a lot of people, it's really hard to kind of like pull out of that. So, what are your thoughts on and tips that you would give to people to like try and separate themselves from that double-minded life and living a single, like godly-led life?
So it's a great question, and it's definitely something that's not like Coptic youth or even Christian youth. This is a human being thing. And I remember when I was young, especially, it's this idea of like you want to fit in somewhere. So when you're at school, you try to fit in with the school people. When you're at church, you try to fit in with the church people. When you're, in basketball, you try to fit in with the basketball people. Because we as human beings, we were not made to be our own rulers. We're created beings. We're not creators. So we're made to worship something. We're made to follow someone, okay, or something. So the problem is if we don't have God in our life, we're constantly looking for someone to kind of like to approve my existence. So if, let's say, we don't believe in God. So I go to school and I want the school people to accept me and I want the school people to like me. So I try to fit in over there. And then I want my parents to accept me and then I want whoever. Until we realize that it's God, like our souls are restless till they rest in you, God. That's what St. Augustine said. So until we realize that's where our true, like our home is for our hearts to be pleasing and seeking only God, we're going to continue to struggle with this, always seeking to please another person or to fit in with another group.
So like in those formative stages of life, like when you're developing, I feel like that's something that's very important is finding like your group, I guess, and finding where you fit in. And I think in my personal life, where I struggled the most was definitely between like school and church, where it's like I wanted to fit in Monday through Friday, but I also wanted to fit in Saturday and Sunday. And for me, it was like, and I lived fine, I was perfect. I could live this, half and half life, this going through the motions on Sunday mornings, and then just doing whatever I want throughout the week and fitting in. And it's really, it almost like you feel like there's something missing. And I would just I want to see like what your thoughts are and like, maybe like, how do you come to this realization that you come from this place of going through it's easy just to go through the motions. It's easy just to fit in, but how do you make that change? How do you make that step?
So believe it or not, when I was young, I actually struggled with this in the exact same way. And those have maybe heard me talk about my upbringing is my parents raised me in church and we had no choice. We went to church, means we went to church. But I really was much more connected with my school friends than I was with anyone at church. I just kind of went to church because my parents would, there was no other choice. So I totally understand it. The thing with trying to please people or fit in groups outside of God, it never ends. Because the group may accept you today, but it doesn't mean they'll accept you tomorrow. And the group is constantly changing. So you're always, it's like in Ecclesiastes where it says, is chasing after the wind. That's what it is, to try to seek approval from people is chasing after the wind, because people change, like what's cool now changes. Things are constantly changing. For me, it was God allowed me to go through a kind of a challenging time in my life. And during those trials, you don't care about what people think about you when you're in a trial. You don't care, what's this when things are tough and things, you don't have answers to things, that's when you seek something higher. And God allowed me to go through those trials because that's where I discovered him. And once I began my relationship with God and I started living for God and seeking to please him, I realized this is so much better than that. And I even remember thinking to myself, like when I started college and I had, the group of guys that I was friends with and they were great guys. Then eventually I found God and I started to gravitate more towards my church group and spend more time, coming home for the weekend for church. And this group of guys, like, they were great. But I just remember thinking they weren't really great, but I mean, like, they were good guys, but they weren't like spiritually good. I remember thinking to myself, because they were like, how come you're never around? And how come you're always, I remember thinking, I could at any point go over there and have that at any point, but I don't want that. This is what's better. And I felt like they were telling me, come back, but deep inside they were not jealous, but kind of sort of jealous, because I had discovered something better than that. Like, I had tasted that and I said, that's really nothing to live for. This is much better because this gets me through trials. This is there for me when I need a pick me up. All right. When I'm alone or when I'm scared or when I'm depressed or whatever it may be. So I think, unfortunately, the answer oftentimes is trials. God allows us to go through trials and we resist it and we hate the trials and where are you, God? But the truth is the trials are what draw us closer to him. So I've learned that in life, sometimes those trials, they're the best thing that ever happens to us.
And that's something that, like, I've heard like a lot. I remember one servant came and like asked us a challenging question, and it was, if Adam and Eve did not fall, would they really ever be able to love God? And like, when you really think about it, like, when they fell and they had to turn back and repent to God, like, it does take so much more than just going through the motions of being in the Garden of Eden. And I feel like it's that same thing, like in my life, where it was, I went to church every Sunday, I went to church Saturday night, whatever. I just kind of just showed up. Why? Because
that's
why
what you're
not?
Supposed to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Because that's what the people around me told me to do. And then when you really, I think for me, it was like when I took ownership of it, when I made it for me, when I made it when I personalized it for myself. And I think that's something that I've been trying to explain to people around me, where it's like, you can't explain it. You can't explain the feeling. Like, you just really, you have to go through it.
Yeah. But what I've discovered is, like you said, you have to go through it, and you want people, like, I want you to go through this so you can take ownership. Some people, like, it's at age 10, some people it's at age 15, some people it's age 20. We're always praying for people, and we're praying that, their hearts would be soft. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, anyone who's watching this podcast, okay, anyone who's out there listening, it's just a matter of time before God works in their life. No doubt about it. God is working, God is working, God is working. And again, some people as age 10, some people at age 15, some people at age 50. Okay, there's never a time where God is not working. So we can't rush the process, is what I'm trying to say. And all we can do is embrace the situation when God sends it to us. Everything inside us is, we don't want trials. We don't want difficulty. We want things easy. But the truth is, sometimes those trials, they're the best thing for us.
Yeah. And I think, like, going back to like the whole like double-minded thing and the whole like double life, where it's almost like flipping a switch on and off. Mm-hmm. And I think like another realization that comes to mind is when the switch stops switching. Like, when you realize that you can't just turn on going to church. It's like, once you get a taste of what God is really like, you can't go back to that on and off. You can't, because you really do feel like something is missing.
Absolutely.
And and sometimes, like, for me, it was gradual. And I feel like for a lot of people, it takes time. It takes a lot of effort. But what is something that, like, a piece of encouragement you'd give to someone who kind of keeps falling back into this double-sided life, but they keep falling back and forth and back and forth. It's almost a double-sided nature. So what is something you would tell them?
I think a lot of times we go back and forth because when we go to God, things get tough. Things are hard. Like, I'm with my friends and they're giving me, making me feel good, but like, it's kind of empty. So like, I want to go to God, but I don't have any close friends in church. So let me just go back. Or like, it's praying is difficult, so I just go back. And what I would challenge everyone to do is embrace it. Okay. Yes, it'll be hard. Going to church for the first time is hard. You don't know anyone, but embrace it. It's a little bit awkward, but embrace it. You've never been on that retreat, but people keep telling you should come. But I don't know anyone. And what if, I get a weird roommate? I know, but embrace it. Just give it a try. You have to be able to go through some awkwardness, some discomfort to be able to reach the good thing that God has in store for you. again, back to my college friends, I could always go back to them. I could always say, you know what, forget about this. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to go back. But this direction is more challenging, but it's more worthwhile in the end.
And I think that challenge is something that a lot of people, they sometimes, like, we even take it for granted. And it's kind of, we're like, oh, something's hard, let's just run to God. And then it ends and it's like, okay. So, and it's, again, goes back to this on and off cycle, but like, as someone who grew up in the church, and as someone who is really invested in the church, and I see a lot of my friends, like, a lot of them are not as, they grew up the same way as me. They were in the church the same amount, and they didn't grow like, up to be,
Take ownership of it.
Yeah, sorry, to take ownership of it. Like, how can I, as a friend, kind of spread that, I guess, just kind of like show them, like, it's time for you to embrace it.
All you can do is live it. Okay. All you can do is live it. I always say, like, our job as missionaries. Okay. And I know you were on a mission trip recently. So our job as missionaries is to be a lighthouse. A lighthouse has two criteria. It has to, A, have a light inside, and B, have an open window. That's it. If you have the light but no window, you're not of much value. If you have a huge window but there's no light, again, you're of no value. So us as Christians, we're lighthouses. We can't tell the boats where to go. We can't, force people to go here or go there. All we can do is be filled with the light and open the window so that the world can see the light within us. Okay, that people may see our good deeds and praise our Father who is in heaven. So that's what I would encourage you with your friends is, I know Isaiah, you got like a passion and you want people, and like, I get it. Like, what's wrong with you people? How come you don't get this? But that's not how people work. And even you see that with Jesus, is that Jesus, if anyone would be frustrated, like, what's wrong with you, Peter? Okay, like, how come you can't get this? Like, you guys are fighting over who's going to be the greatest, James and John. Like, what's wrong with you guys? Like, why can't you get it? But Jesus was always patient with people. Jesus always, because he knew that sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So same thing is that we want to be filled with light, open the window so that the whole world can see it. And in the right time, people will see it. Okay, I can imagine that people were frustrated with me when I was in high school. Like, my servants, I'm sure they were frustrated with me. I'm sure my priest was frustrated. Like, why can't this kid get it? What's wrong with him? But then in the right time, God spoke, God worked, God, the whole thing kind of came together. So we can't force it, but we can just pray and be that lighthouse. Light on the inside, open window to the outside.
I really like the light on the inside, open window. I think it's a very simple example, but it really speaks to, like, the volume of which, like, it's almost humbling to know that you can't do anything about it. Almost like all you can do is be yourself. And it's something that I struggle a lot with. Like, I was talking to Michael in the car on the way here about how, like, I always love to, like, talk about it. I always love, especially with people at school, like, they'll ask me challenging questions, and I always have to talk. And I'll never, I guess, really, like, listen or think about, like, what they have to say. And I think it goes to this point where it's just live, just be Christian, and people will kind of see it and take forth in it. And I think that in order to be fully Christian out everywhere, you cannot live a double-minded life. And obviously it all circles back, but it's very hard. It's very hard for someone to live that one, because it's like what you said earlier. It's easy just to go back. Oh, I can just go back and, on and off. And it's honestly, a lot of people would say it's more fun. It's easier. It takes less effort. You have more friends, you fit in a lot better. But in reality, what I've noticed is when I made that switch, when I really put effort into, no, I'm doing this because I need to, because this is who I am. This is really my identity. When I took full ownership of it, I found truer friends. I found, more happiness, more joy. Like, I've really felt God working in me, when before it was kind of just like God works, but not in me type of thing.
Exactly. But the thing is, that takes effort. It'll always be easier to go the lowest common denominator. But if we're willing to put in the work, and if we're willing to kind of go through the discomfort, the reward at the end is so much greater. Think of it like For me, I got like a sweet tooth. I love to eat junk food. Like I saw some Costco pizza out there. That's like my favorite with some ice cream. Like that's my favorite. But that's not good for me in the long run. It takes more effort for me to eat healthy, but I feel so much better when I eat healthy. You're young, so you don't get this, okay? But when you get to my age, you realize what you eat for breakfast can affect you the rest of the day, at least with me. So it's harder to eat healthy. It's harder to have that spinach smoothie. It'd always be easier to eat the Costco pizza and just pull it out of the fridge and eat it. But in the long run, I'm thankful that I did. It's the same thing here, okay? When I gravitate back towards like a lower level, it's easier, but it'll never be as rewarding.
And a lot of people say, like, in this effort thing, like, I know for me, it's something I get really passionate about, but it's like a lot of people don't fully understand that Christianity requires effort.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that society has kind of created where it's just like Christianity just like, it just happens, you know, like, you know, you'll be saved one day. And I mean, I get where it comes from. I get the like, what's the word I was looking for?
The mindset.
Yes. Yeah. I get like where they're coming from. I get like why they say it. It's very like easy to bring people in. It's like an evangelistic, I guess, view. It's kind of just like Christianity will happen. It'll happen. Just keep coming. So, but it really does require effort to put in. It really requires, you can't just show up to church on Sundays. You have to, you know, do stuff outside. So, and a lot of times it's hard to justify that effort. Like as someone who just kind of goes through the motions, why would I try harder? Why? So what is something you'd like advise someone who is scared to make that change, to really put in that effort, but obviously, you know, it's better for them?
The problem that we have, what kind of describes a word to me that describes the mindset that you're talking about, is a consumer mindset. We have a very consumeristic mindset. Why should I? What's in it for me? Okay, come to liturgy at 9 o'clock. What difference does it make if I come at 9 or 9:10? Like, what do I gain? It's all about me. It's all about me. It's all about me. That mindset is going to get you nowhere in life, okay? Because in the end, a better mindset is like going to the gym. Does it make a difference if I go to the gym for an hour or an hour and 15 minutes? Yeah, those 15 minutes exercise make a difference. Yeah. So it's the same thing. We have to think of our spiritual health and say, it's good for me to do certain spiritual exercises. Going to church, fasting, praying, Bible, serving. All these things make a difference. But, what's in it for me? What's in it for me is an attitude that's not going to get you anywhere in life. And I hope that we, as Orthodox Christians in particular, can throw away this mindset and say, we're not here to say, what can we receive? We're here to say what effort we can put in to be able to get to the spiritual destination, the spiritual health that we want.
And I think, like, I really like that mind, like that example. And I think that this mindset of what can I give? It's such a beautiful mindset in general in life. Because it creates humility. It creates the sense of giving, and especially in the service. It's something Abunane says all the time. It's, you don't serve, like, the service is not for you. Sorry, the service does not need you, but you need the service. And it's that same thing where it's like, I'm putting in the effort to serve, not because for my own glory, not because, oh, look at Isaiah, look what he's doing. It's because I need the spiritual edification that comes from putting myself below others and doing things and taking time out of my day to serve others or money or whatever capacity it is that you serve. And I think service, something that I've grown to know as service, is not just teaching Sunday school. It's not just standing up and being a deacon. It's not, it's not what you would like when you first think of service. It's the little acts. It's the little things, the things you do at home. It's something that a lot of our servants tell us. It's like a true servant from how he serves at home. What does he do that makes life for his family easier? And I think that part of this, again, not being double-minded, is being a servant everywhere you go. Not just being a servant when you walk in those church doors, but being a servant in every single walk of life, in every aspect of life. And I think that in order to do all this, like, it requires a lot of humility, I think, is like the number one trait for this.
There's something we say in the Gregorian liturgy. We, speaking to God, say, you had no need of my servitude, I am in need of your lordship. Okay. And if you look at like the disciples, for example, like who benefited? Did Jesus benefit from Peter, or Peter benefited from Jesus? Like, who's the winner there? Like, Peter was chosen to be a disciple. Is that because like it was did Jesus really needed Peter? Or Peter, it's like your lucky day, man, that you were chosen for this. Same thing. I feel like I always say I'm the luckiest person in the world that I get to be in church and I get to do this full time. Like everyone else has to go to work, okay, as bankers or lawyers or doctors, and then come to church. I get to be in church all day, every day, and spend my whole life around. Like I'm the luckiest person on the planet to be able to do this, that I was chosen for this. It's not that like, okay, God needs me. God doesn't need us. We need him.
Yeah, and I think that's like that humility. It goes back to like, not because if you're double-minded, right, and you're living this double-minded life, you're like, oh, I don't need God. I need him. Like I need him when I want to need him. And it's again, it takes so much out of this humility where you don't feel like you need help, and it's not just in a spiritual sense in general. And it kind of, I think that when you live that single like God-led life and you really put yourself out there to God and you're vulnerable, it allows you to grow in so many different fashions. That's not just spiritually. I mean, it helps you grow as a person. It helps you grow like, because there's something that I like to think a lot and like to say, it's that God's not going to forget the effort you put in. Mm-hmm. God is always going to remember it. And whether that means you get rewarded now, 10 years, 20 years, in eternity, it doesn't matter. But God will never forget what you give to him.
Absolutely. And you can never outgive God. 1,000%.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Abuna.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is
I know
great.
it was in a little short notice, but highly appreciated. We thank you so much, and hopefully you can come to Atlanta one time soon and bless us with your presence.
I appreciate it. Keep on fighting the good fight, man.
Thank you, Abuna.
Thank you.